been a professional photographer now for about 25 years, I reckon, and I've been a photographer in my native Liverpool for a short while after serving in the British Army for 6 years, and I became a photographer almost by accident. I was always interested in photography as a hobby, and there's parts of me now I still think it like a hobby. You know, I still love the whole thing about, you know, cameras and feeling them and playing with them and stuff. It was just chance and happenstance that I became a photographer, really. I went to see a Ouija exhibition and a Irving Penn exhibition in my native Liverpool, and I thought that was what all photography was like. I was really naive and I just thought it was so magnificent, and that was your target, to be like that. There's a certain crime element to a lot of my pictures, and all because of Ouija. It soon became apparent that if I was going to make a living out of it, I had to move to London. Being a small country, London is the obvious epicentre for anything really photographic, certainly. And I always class my professional status as when I moved to London. Because suddenly London was booming under the Thatcher years, and it was just an incredible time to be a photographer. And it was almost like a training ground for me. And even though I've had ups and downs like any freelance professional person, you know, I never looked back from moving to London. And I just started taking pictures of the local rock scene, and suddenly, because I was the only one there, they got picked up by the musical press. People will come to me for almost, I hate the word, but almost a makeover. I mean, Catherine Zeta-Jones, you know, she came to me and we became friends because she was in a TV series which was immensely successful but was like a millstone around her neck. She couldn't shake this image, and we planned to change her image like beyond belief. You know, and that's why the pictures of her in my portfolio are very glamorous. And it was at a time when, you know, you have to be a Shakespearean actress to get noticed. If you happen to be beautiful and British and an actress, you just weren't taken seriously. Liz Hurley was exactly the same. You know, she was just a model, and then I did lots of pictures of her. You know, it's not just a pretty picture of a pretty girl. There's always something more. I've certainly photographed kings, princes and prime ministers, but somehow, you know, dealing with sort of Hollywood elite is really good, you know, impressive. Even though I'm never starstruck, because my true love is photography, so that nothing ever gets in the way of the camera, so to speak. Probably be people like Mel Gibson and Schwarzenegger, people like that, you know, who were really big at the time, and, you know, to be flown off to fantastic destinations. You know, it was literally the fairy tale photographer lifestyle. You know, my pictures have that look about them, but you can tell I'm not there just to do another PR shot for that person. I don't know if it's my character or the fact that they know what they're in for when they're being photographed by a photographer of my style, is that normally they are very open to ideas, and the more creative and talented a person is, I always find that they're far more inquisitive. I remember Mick Jagger, he was really interested in what we were doing. Martin Scorsese, you know, went and got changed for me, you know, because he knew I was putting him in one of his own movies. And it's one of my favourite shots of him that I use. You get someone like Iggy Pop, who God knows how many times he's been photographed, and has really gained from interesting photography. I almost dislike working with true professional models because they just deliver a repertoire of poses that is so cliched. Working with someone relatively new, there's a real strong energy because of the spontaneity. I find that edgier photographs. Rock and rollers are absolutely fantastic to photograph because, you know, the music has gone alongside through the history with great imagery. You know, the LP cover is an art form in itself. I personally like jumping in at the deep end and going for a really big shot straight away to really crack it. But often the first hour of my shoot is the most productive, believe it or not. I get off on the energy of the shoot, and like, for instance, I don't shoot many Polaroids, I don't hang around. You know, I really move as quickly as possible to keep them on their toes. I've usually got very strong ideas, not so much in the composition that I want, but in the feeling and atmosphere that I'm looking for. I mean, sometimes a great photo just appears, but I don't think that's an accident. I think that's, you know, to me, 90% of the shoots I do, taking the pictures just the cherry on the cake. The planning is really what goes into it. You know, I've often talked it through. I mean, I always try really hard to meet the person and discuss the shoot and plan it as much as possible. always leaving room for spontaneity and a chance. I get stressed before the shoot, but I'm never stressed on the shoot. I still think it's really fun. I like that sense of voyeurism in my pictures. The environment is very important to my pictures. Very few are studio bound. And what I like to imply is if it almost is like that, captured. I mean, the Tony Blair picture was captured, and that was in the back of one of those Russian limos. And it was literally midnight in St. Petersburg. It was pitch black, and I just fired it off. And it was, I think, a very powerful picture of a modern politician going in the deep end, so to speak, with his wife. I always call it like an awkwardness in some of my pictures. So there's a slight awkwardness going on. Is it something is about to happen or has just happened? I'm far more daring than I once was. I'm far more open, to things happening. I'm less worried about the consequences of some of the shots, particularly ones like, say, of a sexual nature. My work in the 90s was, very much the A-list of A-lists. But that's why my archive, is quite substantial now. And as a, practicing, artistic photographer, then I can't just stand still and do the same thing. And I think photography thrives on challenge and change. I think what we'll do is we'll do the yellow dress first.
Yeah.
And we'll go down to nude.
Yeah, the nude girls. The girls.
Probably with women, it's better to photograph them again. With men, and whether that's because I'm like a heterosexual, so I look at women differently, and I enjoy photographing them. You know what I mean? There's lots of different things you can do with a woman, but there's not much you can do with a man. If you get what I'm saying. There's all kinds of funny pictures, haven't we?
Yeah.
I never class myself as a groundbreaking photographer, certainly not technically. I actually consider myself, and I'm proud to be like a traditionalist. I'm continuing in a tradition of photography. Movies influence me, and certain styles, film noir, Hitchcock, Polanski, them type of people influence me a lot. Not necessarily that I copy them, but I like the atmospheres a lot of them type of movies give me. I'm not interested in that old photography, capturing the inner soul. I'm not interested in their inner soul. I want them to look hot. I want them to look really good, sexy, dangerous. I'm not interested in what their mummy like in it. There's something about a beautiful woman in danger, and that's very. I do it as long as I get some criticism. But if you're Alfred Hitchcock, you can kill a woman off in a first reel. Janet Leigh was only in the movie about 20 minutes, and I sort of like that sort of feel. It's not so much favourite shot, it's the great memory that photography gives you, I get very nostalgic and almost emotional about seeing pictures I've done years ago. I even get emotional when I go past locations I've done. I think, God, that's where I photographed so-and-so, especially as I'm a location photographer. But sort of the Rolling Stones, for example, just that experience, and I do love that shot, doing the poster for GoldenEye, the Pierce Brosnan's first Bond movie, all great experiences, and I like the photographs, a lot, but it is really moving on to the next shoot is always the most important.